There is no specific way I'm going to share what's going on with me. That we wish we could. So I'll go back to a long time ago. My son was born in 1996. I had already had 4 kids and as a single mom. The husband then that I was married to was locked up. And so I met someone. Now, he was locked up for 7 years, okay? So I met someone during the time while he was locked up, and I got pregnant. And during this time, I was really, really sad. Sad because I was a single parent. Sad because I didn't have anybody to help me with my children as it was. My mom wasn't there. My brothers did whatever they could, whenever they would come by the house. You know how if you have brothers that care about your children, your brothers would step in and get shoes for them, or that's what my brothers did. They would help out whenever they could. And my mom and I relationship wasn't good. I feel like my mom always said no to me in just about everything. No. It didn't matter what it was. I had so many no's that when I did have my children, I knew that I was going to be raising them by myself. And I did, basically, raise my children on my own. So by the time I had found out I was pregnant with this one, my 2 youngest ones my girl was still basically a baby. And my son, Dre, had probably just got into the rhythm of walking. So it wasn't like they were stair-steppers. So just imagine me being a single mom with 5 kids, 4 and 1 on the way. So at one point, I think I was in my last month of pregnancy, the guy who I was with said to me, if anybody asks you who the baby belonged to, tell them you don't know. I did not know, or I didn't know how that broke me on the inside, but I think I was already at my wits' end. I think I was already at the last straw of how I was already processing, gonna have another baby for a man that I'm not married to. I didn't consider my entire situation, and that I made a lot of my decisions out of being emotionally distraught. Even meeting him, the first thing he said to me is, I'm a man of God, God-fearing man. And that was his approach to me, and he liked me. And so we somewhat dated back in the 1990s. You know how we was, especially if you lived in the projects. It wasn't like the men thought that you were worthy of taking you out on dates. He may have took me out on a date or 2. And I wasn't desperate for even a companion in my life at the time. I really didn't know what I want. I do know that I wanted a more spiritual relationship with God, but my circumstance made me feel like I just had to fight in this, where I was. So though I was still praying and asking God for help and raising my children up to God, I still was, in my human nature more than I was in my spiritual life, I want to say. Like I said, I ended up being pregnant for him. So whenever he told me that, I had no idea that it was going to take me on this journey of a downward spiral. So by the time the baby came, I had to have a C-section. He wasn't in the hospital, as a matter of fact. Yeah, that was one of the things that was hard, was him not being in the hospital. You know, there was nobody in the hospital with me. That happened quite a bit. So being in the hospital, I look terrible in this light. So being in the hospital alone, all of a sudden, this nurse passes by, and it seems to her that the baby heartbeat stopped beating or something. So they did an emergency C-section. I didn't want that. I prayed during the time, and I asked them not to do it until I finished praying. And so I prayed. Next thing I know, I have the baby. He is born with the very, very small, because I was right before I should have the baby. I don't remember how many weeks, but it was, I went into the hospital for them to induce my labor. So it's not like I just went to the hospital because I was in labor. They had to induce my labor. So while I was laying there, the baby heartbeat stopped, and then I ended up having to have a C-section. So C-section is over. Sorry, I put my shades on. C-section is over. He's a little bit underweight. I think he was like 4 pounds, so they wanted to be a little bit heavier. And he had a little touch of yellow jaundice, I think it was. So basically, he stayed in the hospital for a month. So he was born around November 26th. I think it was 26th. Yeah, he's born November 26th. So I stayed home, and pretty much my body was healed itself for that time. I did go see it maybe once or twice. But it was just different this time for me. But I'm not in my right mind to understand my feelings of I'm already detached. So when he did come home, it was December the 24th. So he was in there for basically a month. So he came home right before Christmas. I had been healed as far as going back and forth to the doctor about the stitches. And now I have this baby at home whose dad told me, if anybody asked who he belonged to, tell him you don't know. So rejection was really deep as far as I can see. Like, again, when you don't know what you're in while you're in it. Well, I didn't know what I was in while I was in it, so I was just there. So I have 4 other kids, and I have this baby. I did not want to hold this baby. I did not want to nurture this baby. I didn't want to feed him. I didn't want to do anything because I felt already alone, and my mom was not there. Nobody was there for me but God. But even while God was there, I still felt alone. And everybody know what that feels like when you just feel alone. Even though the scriptures say God will never leave you nor forsake you. So I was doing my thing with the baby, and I would put him in the swing, you know, the roll up little thing, string, where it did that made that sound when you put the baby in the swing and it clicked to wind up. You had to wind up the swing. I would let that be his rocker. I would walk out the door. I would come back in the door. You know, he'd be crying. He just wanted me to hold him, but I was just in such a place. And at that time, there was no such thing as postpartum. Postpartum depression, or I guess that's what it's called. Well, I had that big time, and nobody diagnosed that. He was, I think, considered almost like a preemie, but he really wasn't, because he was only a very few days before he was supposed to be born, like maybe 2 weeks or something. So, guys, that happened, and so and this is why it got, how I know it got really bad. One day I was giving him, I was changing his diaper, and when I changed his diaper, I remember jerking his leg a little bit, and when I stood him up after I changed his diaper, he kind of made that little sound like it hurt. So I knew that I had hurt my baby, and I felt horrible, and I really didn't know what to do. So at that time, of course, I hugged him, held him close to me, and I apologized. and of course nurtured him and all those things. And he is now 6 months. So one day I had to go to the hospital. At the hospital, at this time, you can catch the medical bus if you don't have transportation. And at that time, I think I didn't have transportation, or I just decided to catch that bus that day because I didn't want to drive or something. I don't know. But anyway, I was on a medical bus transportation to and from his doctor's appointment. I didn't know I could have told the doctor my issues and the doctor would help me, but I didn't. So sitting on the bus, this lady, wow, this baby is looking at me and I'm just talking to him. It's about 3 ladies on the bus. And I always felt invisible, rejected, and like just a nobody anyway. So I'm talking to him and I'm like, I'm not holding you. So stop looking at me like that. And this lady on the bus, the driver turned and said to me, he's so cute. I know somebody who wants a baby. She can't have a baby. It was a dear friend of hers. And guys, for some reason, that didn't seem out of order for me. It was like right on time. So I said, do you have her number? And we switched numbers. Like I gave her my number and I took that number. I guess that was an outlet to me. In hindsight, that was God placed that woman there for a time. So anyway, I did reach out to the lady. She was a lady who could not have kids, and she was married to a man that was younger than her. And they both wanted a kid. And so I called the dad and I told him what I was contemplating on doing, and he agreed. If I wanted to do that, then he was fine with it. And he told me that afterwards that he did that because he didn't believe the baby was his. Guys, the baby looked just like him, but he said that to me. So anyway, the lady came over, we met, we did like a notary, where a little adoption was written up by, I think it's probably my baby's daddy wrote it up. I really don't remember. But I know we went to a notary, got it notarized. And I'll never forget sitting on the bed holding him. And I did walk and talk to him when I knew what I was going to do. When I finalized my thoughts, I walked and talked to him and said, I'm so sorry. Your mama just can't do one more baby and I'm going to have to give you up. And I'm so sorry. Again, he was 6 months. So I gave him over to this lady, and because I had very little furniture in my apartment, she did give me a bed, and that was helpful because my boys had a bed now to sleep in. So when I think about that, I feel like I traded my baby for a bed. What a horrible mom. But anyway, so don't forget I had her number. So every night I called that lady because I kept thinking about my baby. I called her every night for 2 weeks. And one of the nights she said to me, baby, you're going to have to stop calling me because so he can, grow up and you can pretty much get over it. And that, let me tell you how my mental was while every night I called. Every night I called because I couldn't sleep because I had did this thing. Every night I kept thinking about him growing up without me. What is he doing? Is she holding him? Is he crying? Or just all those things that I wasn't doing. I'm now wondering if it's being done to him, for him, because I am still a mother, you know what I mean? So, long story short, I ended up, like I said, calling her every night. And this one night, I was pretty much in turmoil. I could not sleep. I could not rest. I was on the edge. I was thinking of him growing up. I was thinking of him walking without me. I was thinking of him talking. I was just, all of a sudden, all of the normal things that mothers want to be a part of when their baby is making their first this and that. I was wanting to be that, and I didn't want it to be anyone else. So that night when I called her, that last night when I called her, and I said 2 weeks she had him, I called her and she said, baby, you're gonna have to stop calling me. That night is the night I called his dad and I said, I want to go pick up my baby. Guys, I had not been to her house before that. So I had never checked the situation out. That's how desperate I was as a mom, and not even knowing what my baby was walking into or going into. So we went and picked him up, and I know it was God, because when she saw me, she just opened the door and moved to the side, and I went and picked my baby up, put him in my arms, and said, "I'm so sorry," and I got him back. She didn't fight with me. She didn't ask me a question. I walked out her door, and I never seen her again. And when I look back on that, that was God ordained time. He knew I needed time to be, he knew I needed that time. And he allowed me to have it. So he put that lady in that place for me to have a time to not only grieve, but get my mind back together so that I can raise my son as a mother should. So that happened. And then, okay, so now I'm just kind of leaping to where I am right now in my life, where I'm really troubled because, you know, okay, so at 45, I'm 55 now, but at 45, my children graduated from school. The youngest one, he was living with his dad. So me having all my children, my 4, the last one, they graduated. Basically, I was a free mom. I was so thankful. I celebrated not having to do any schoolwork anymore, not having to help with homework, not having to buy school clothes, not having to sign another piece of paper permission slip. I was totally happy. I was thankful. My husband and I could travel. My kids were old enough to, you know, do things on their own. They were now well on their way. And so, mind you, I had already been taking care of my absent daughter's son, Tariq, on and off. Basically, for 4 years we did that. But in 2016, I want to say, it was 15 or 16, she was able to get him back. So that was a good thing. So here I am, moving on with my life. And so she had him for 6 years. 2 years she did good. And then I guess she went off and on, and then in that last 2 years she did horrible. She had even made a defined decision. I'm gonna do, she was doing heroin, I think. And then she told us that now she's gonna do cocaine. And when she said it, it was like, as a matter of fact, there's nothing you could do about it. And I'm gonna do what I wanna do, and ain't nobody gonna take my son, or whatever she was thinking in her mind. She was so cocky with it. The house looked like trash. I only went there out of the kindness of my heart, to make sure that my grandson was at least eating and all of those things. And I not in my wildest dream want to ever take her son or do this all over again. Not in my wildest dreams. Being a parent is a 24-hour job, let alone taking care of someone else's child. That's even more of my time. So anyway, God had another plan. So he ended up putting that child in my life. He put him smack dab in the middle of my life 10 years later. Now I'm 55 and I have to do this. And things has been going on, and it has not been easy. It hasn't been fun. It's been a test of all tests to me. I'm gonna have to pause this video here and come back, because I had to come to the gym. This is my way out. This is my way getting through. And then I will pick up on the second part of my, like I said, I don't have a name for it, but it's all those things that I said in that title, and I will pick up what's happening now. God bless.